Of course he does. He's gonna mark his territory.
Hey, look at this.
I would do that, but I'm just gonna get snow in my car. Let me borrow your brush real quick. How's it going, everybody? It's a little dark, so you might not be able to see me, but Jorge here with Automotive Ambitions, and I'm going to go through all the cars that I've owned and a brief moment to how I ended up getting it, or why I ended up getting the car. So my very first car was a Ford Taurus 1997. And it was my first car. I didn't care about anything else. That's all I needed was a car. So it served its purpose until, well, the engine went out, and then I proceeded to spend about $700 on repairing the car. That was probably like 2 paychecks for me at the time. Spent $700 repairing the car, and then a couple weeks later I got into a severe accident, basically rendering the Ford Taurus useless, and I got about, I think, like $2,000, $1,900 back for it. I was more upset about the fact that I had just repaired it more than anything, but I got my money's worth. I drove it for about 2 years, I think it was. So I got my money's worth, and it lasted me a couple of years. When I replaced the Ford Taurus, I got a 2002 Ford Focus, which was great. Couple things though. I didn't like how small it was. I didn't like that it wasn't remotely good in snow. I was sideways several times. Part of that was due to the tires were cheap. They were brand new, but they were cheap. All season tires, and I didn't know that at the time. So I got rid of it. I felt I needed a four-wheel drive SUV or truck. So I proceeded to buy what I didn't know at the time, the junkiest V8 Jeep Grand Cherokee. I think it was like a 96. Maybe even older than that, maybe like a 94, 95. And I thought it was great. I had a V8 vehicle. I thought, you know, I've always been in the V8 since I was a kid. I love the rumble, I love the sound, I love the exhaust note, which is redundant, I know. But I needed it for snow, so I got it for snow. My special self didn't think about the fact that I needed tires. Mind you, I haven't always been a car guy. I never had anybody to guide me through that process. Didn't know I needed tires. The tires were gold. I was negligent on that aspect. And somehow, magically, this Jeep Grand Cherokee got me everywhere I needed. I drove in a, I say a tornado, but it was really bad weather. It was raining ridiculous amounts. I was through floodwaters essentially. And it got me home perfectly fine. I drove through blizzards, got me home perfectly fine. But anyway, so it served its purpose perfectly fine for me. And then I decided I needed a newer vehicle because I was hardworking. I was working a lot of hours. Do not fall into that pit of feeling that you owe yourself something. Granted, you might if you work a lot, but buy something for your hobby. So I felt I owed myself a new car because this is when I was starting to get into cars very heavily. So I sold the car for a 1994 Chevy Cavalier. I believe it was a Cavalier. I don't know. with the sole purpose of I got $1,000 for the Jeep plus the car. It was just as trashy as my Jeep Grand Cherokee, but I was gonna trade it in anyway. It wouldn't have mattered. So I got cash, got rid of this car. I had cash in hand. Everything was lined up to buy the car. So then I went and bought a Nissan Versa. I didn't care what new car, because it was used, that I got, but I wanted a car no less. So I got this 2010 Nissan Versa. I got talked into this, mind you. It would have been a hot hatch, okay? It was awesome because it was a hatch. It intrigued me. I saw other hot hatches, but it didn't have a turbo. It didn't have, you know, the pedigree. It had a lackluster automatic transmission. Nothing about this was a hot hatch. The loan, more like it. So I got the loan by myself, and that was what I was proud of. I was proud of that fact. I didn't care what kind of car I had. A few months down the road, I had made 6 months worth of payments, and I fell into the same trap that I gave myself last time. I felt I needed an SUV. I felt it was necessary. Needed something bigger for the future, so I bought an SUV. I was paying stupidly. I will say I was extremely stupid. $500 when I was making probably $500 per paycheck, and I was with somebody at this time, so it's not like I was making the payments by myself. But I learned my lesson, and I got into a modest Ford Taurus again. Thought this is the perfect start again. Foolishly, I was making payments on that one because I had just gotten a really good job, stable job. Only this time it wasn't as dramatic. It was like $150 a month, which was super easy. I had no issues with that. So I kept my Ford Taurus and got that lasted about 8 months. No, that lasted about a year. I take that back. It lasted a year, I think, to the day. And about a year later, I traded in for a Grand Prix. The Grand Prix wasn't better in any way. It had a better sound system. It was, I mean, I guess a nicer car in a way. But it was stupid because I had the car paid off, I had the Ford Taurus paid off, and I still felt the need to purchase this Grand Prix. So I bought the Grand Prix, and subsequently paid it off. We, you know, had her 2 kids, and needed something for traveling, that type of stuff. So I bought the Tahoe. Again, I have learned since, but this truck was amazing. It was fully loaded. It was I think it was like an LTZ or whatever the equivalent was, fully loaded in 2006. And I love this thing. I thought it was the greatest thing. And that didn't last very long because, as you might learn, driving 6 hours, 12 hours I should say, so I was driving I think 1,200 miles every other weekend. An SUV doesn't do that great with gas, so we bought a newer Ford Taurus 2013. We did also have Nissan Altima, 2005 Nissan Altima. I love that thing. It had wheels. It was well taken care of. It was fun, strangely, don't ask. But then we got the Ford Fusion, 2013 Ford Fusion. That thing was fun. It was my first turbo, quite frankly. And that's what got me into turbos ultimately. Now, mind you, it was an EcoBoost. It was a Ford EcoBoost, but it was there. The turbo was there, and when I needed the power, it was available to me. So I like that. I learned to like it over, not necessarily over V8s, because I still favor V8s, but it taught me to accept the turbos. So I bought a work car after that. It was for more or less for fun. It was a 1991 Lincoln Town Car. I don't know why. I thought it was kind of cool. It was a throwback to when I was a kid. It was big. It was spacious. It was luxurious. Even being 1991, the suspension was nice. That wasn't until the suspension went out. So the car was to the ground at all times, and it needed work, and I just wasn't happy with it. Because there was a Duramax, which I had briefly, the money, and I love that Duramax. I wanted to keep it basically from then on out. That was my logic, because back then I loved fast cars, but my concern was I was too logical. I was worried that I would buy a fast car, a Mustang, a Corvette, a Camaro, and I would get tickets. 2007 Chevy Avalanche. Love that thing as well. And then when we went to buy the house, I went and bought a 2014 Chevy Impala because I was denied for the home loan. That was one of the dumbest things I did, because in a month I lost way too much money. And then after that, we sold the Avalanche as well. Made some money on that. We had saved up quite a bit of money. Bought cars cash. Had no loans. Had no debt, except for my student loans. And then after we bought the house, we bought, we upgraded to the GMC Terrain.